All right, folks, welcome back to the VanNoisSeur Podcast. That's right, here on the VanNoisSeur Podcast, we do, we explore Class B RVs, overlanding, and van life culture in general. That's what we're here for. That's what we do. Good afternoon to everyone out there. We go live on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. Our guest today is Wade Seaburg, CRO, Chief Revenue Officer of Battleborn Batteries slash Dragonfly Energy. Right?
Absolutely. Thanks for
Okay.
having me, Hank.
Oh, thanks for coming on, man. This is really cool. I think, batteries, lithium batteries, big deal to the folks out there in the van world, as well as, a bunch of other sections. We deal with vans. So this, I think, will be a great opportunity for the people that have questions to get their questions answered, etc. But let's start with, who you are, Wade, how you wound up working in the lithium battery world. Let's start with that.
Absolutely. So Wade Seaburg, Chief Revenue Officer, as you said. I started working in the lithium battery market as a independent rep for Dragonfly Energy. I've always been in the RV market my whole career, pretty much. Graduated from Purdue University with an engineering degree, went on to work for a couple of different companies within the RV market, always in the electrical space, I guess, and supplying to OEMs. And at the launch of Dragonfly Energy, I was approached by the founder of Dragonfly to, hey, would you handle the OEM side of the market? Because I live in Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
That's where most of the RVs are manufactured, and it just made sense. They were going to handle the Battleborn side and the direct to consumer side, and we've had so much success that a couple years ago they approached me and said, "Hey, we want you to come on board full time and just focus on growing Dragonfly Energy and the Battleborn Batteries brand to what it is today." And I was grateful for the opportunity, and in 21 came on board full time as director of business development, and then last year accepted the role of chief revenue officer. So I've been in the lithium battery market for 6 years,
Okay.
probably.
Yeah, and I know I forgot this, so I'll get this in. This is episode 6. Just for
Perfect.
someone out there is going to remind me of that. And I think that you are the reason that, if folks don't know this, StrangerPalooza, Lola, and myself, we have a relationship with Battleborn batteries. That's what we have in our van. I'll probably show our setup here at some point as we're talking here, but that's what we have. And I think that was based. I think you're the person who started that all off. If we got to give the credit. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing.
Hey, but we have an incredible team. Whether
Yeah.
whether it was me or one of the other team members,
Right.
it doesn't matter. We're constantly,
Hmm.
you know, it's. I just came from the Overland Expo
Hmm.
up in the Pacific Northwest. It was in Redmond, Oregon, and
Hmm.
you know, when we attend trade shows, it's awesome to hear from our customers. And we had so many customers come up and tell us how thankful they were for solving their battery problems, et cetera, et
Hmm.
cetera. So Hank, whether it was myself or one of those other team members that got you and I introduced to each other, yeah,
Yeah.
it's been awesome.
Yes, thanks to everyone involved in that. I know it doesn't just work with you. I think it started with you, and then after that, I connected with Kaylin, who's awesome, and then the rest of
Yep.
the people on the team. I'm gonna miss out on names because one, I'm terrible with names, and then there's quite a few people. I know Eric has helped us a lot, but you guys are very knowledgeable. So if people want to convert to lithium, you can actually. Battleborn doesn't do the installation, but they help you out with it, and they give you guidance and all kinds of information.
Absolutely. Yeah, people ask all the time what sets us apart, and there's two major things that set us apart. The first is we're an American company that builds batteries in America, right? We
Hmm.
actually are putting batteries together in Reno, Nevada, under 100,000 square foot facility.
Mm-hmm.
And every day we know every single component that's going inside of our batteries and how they're assembled. And then the second factor is some of the team members that you just mentioned. And there's about 15 of them that are on the front lines dealing with customers, answering phone calls. When you call into Battleborn Batteries, you're going to get a human that's in Reno, Nevada, that
Mm-hmm.
is going to walk you through your system. They're going to ask you questions about your charging components and make sure that they're compatible with lithium. If there's any changes that we would recommend, we've got the components that we could offer to make it a much more efficient system. But
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna guide you through that transition. It's not just a transaction for us.
Yeah. So by the way, this is I have the Game Changer 3 in there.
Yeah,
So just to show folks a little bit here, this is my setup.
it's awesome.
So yeah, we're running off of this right now. This was while it was getting installed. This is pretty much what it looks like right now. So
Oh, you added the blue
okay.
lights too. That's great. That
Yes,
looks great.
that's for showing off.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
know. So and I'll tell you, there's I spent a lot of time with you guys at different overlanding shows, right? Different events. I think you're also at the Tampa
Yep.
show in January, and I've like been there, standing there with all the folks who come up and have questions. Okay, I want to do this thing, I want to do that thing, and you guys very detailed, offer a lot of help, and I think that's a big deal to me because this is very complicated and a lot of information to wrap your head around, and I hope that's what we do in this. We get some folks' questions answered out there.
Yeah, it can be complicated. We try to make it simple. We try to
Mm-hmm.
put the complexity inside of the
Mm-hmm.
box and make it so that the battery performs flawlessly for
Mm-hmm.
customers. But it honestly, in any of our complicated installs, it's really the other parts that
Mm-hmm.
you're dealing with. It's not so much the battery. The
Mm-hmm.
battery is a pretty um, simple element in what we've done with it. There are
Mm-hmm.
a lot of complexities inside the case,
Mm-hmm.
but we've taken care of most of that, and it's how it's interacting with those charge components that we really dial into to make sure that people have one. We want to make sure that they have a great experience, but two, we also want to make sure that we're appropriately painting the expectations for the customers so that when they get out there, they're not like, okay, I got one lithium battery and now I can boondock for a week. Well,
Right.
no, that's not the case, right? You need a little more.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to take some questions. Well, actually, we've got one interesting question here from Dave49. He says, "Hello, Hank, Battleborn, and all from Northern VA. 94 degrees here. Are we coming to the end of lithium?" That's the question. The end of lithium. So I'm not sure what that means, but are we running out of lithium or something?
We are not. We are not. There's
Right.
plentiful supply of
Mm-hmm.
lithium.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of untapped mines and deposits of lithium across not only the world but also here in North America.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we're not running out of lithium. There are some other precious metals that are involved in EV batteries that are in shorter supply than what lithium is, but
Mm-hmm.
as far as lithium iron phosphate, which is the chemistry that we run in our batteries, we're not. We've got plenty
Yeah.
of supply.
So
Yep.
I think that is an interesting question from the point of view of like geopolitics and all that, right?
Yeah.
And some folks may, when they look at this, they think, oh, all of a sudden China, for example, could stop mining this stuff, or there's, like you said, there's some precious metals that are maybe coming out of West Africa that aren't really coming
Yep.
out of the ground in the right way, and people are getting hurt doing that. So do you get that kind of thing a lot where people are wondering about lithium and the availability of it, and all of a sudden it'll get expensive and not be so easy to do?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we get the question thrown over to us often, but you know, we're a we're a technology company first, Hank, right? So we're
Mm-hmm.
actually doing R&D and
Mm-hmm.
product development at the
Mm-hmm.
fundamental level
Right.
of battery
Mm-hmm.
technology, right? Cellular
Mm-hmm.
level. So we've we've done a great deal of research and also just networking within that lithium supply chain to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that we've secured proper supply for when we're ready to deploy cells that we're making here in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And it's we really have plenty.
Okay.
I mean, you look at the investment that
Mm-hmm.
the major automotive companies are deploying across the country for manufacturing of cells and of their own EV batteries. Those folks don't deploy billions of dollars in manufacturing plants if they think it's only going to be a 5-year endeavor, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they're doing this for the long haul.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things a lot of people out there are concerned with the ramp up of electric vehicles and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, there's
Yeah.
not only that, like you said, the technology is changing all the time, and folks are
Yep.
always working on cleaner, safer, more renewable ways of doing that, right? And at the end, it's just the convenience here. So I think based on the convenience, I don't see it going away at this point.
No,
I'm not going
the
back to
convenience and
AGMs.
also the focus of the convenience and also I'd say the focus of onshoring,
Mm-hmm.
manufacturing, American manufacturing
Mm-hmm.
is a big deal. And we just as a country we haven't been mining
Mm-hmm.
lithium at a high level
Mm-hmm.
within the United States, and now we're starting to focus on that, and also the refinement of the lithium once it comes out of the ground to
Mm-hmm.
make it into a usable form for the battery companies that are making cells. Like that's all happening right now.
Mm-hmm.
In Washington's DC is injecting a lot of capital in order to make that happen through DOE funding and other resources that you hear all the time. So and so company has been issued a grant, and all of that's happening right now. So it's an exciting time, honestly, to be involved in the electrification of not just RVs. Like that's your experience, and
Mm-hmm.
that's great, but a whole slew of industries that are looking to figure out how they can not only successfully deploy lithium for the betterment of the environment, but also just for the betterment of their end products. I think
Mm-hmm.
it's once we lean into an OEM, it's amazing what they are able to do with our products.
Yeah, usability and convenience. So Lola asked this
Yeah.
question. She said, "Where are Battleborn batteries made slash assembled?" So I think most people right now, as that's what we're talking about, most people right now are getting lithium from China, right? Is that correct with you guys? And then everything else is made here, or how does that work?
Yeah, we procure our cells today
Mm-hmm.
come from China, right?
Mm-hmm.
We import them. We have a great supply partner over there, a couple of them now, and it's our quality of our cells has increased over the lifespan of our company's existence. So we continue to get better and better cells coming from overseas. All of our other components, the majority of them are sourced domestically, and that's been a focus of ours for a long time. But they're all final assembly is all done in Reno, Nevada. And when I say final assembly, like sometimes people can embellish that term, right? That
Mm-hmm.
some people say final assembly, and all they're doing is putting a sticker on the pack and
And
calling,
done.
calling it theirs. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I mean, we actually have robotic welders that are welding,
Mm-hmm.
120 cells
Mm-hmm.
to each other inside of our 100 amp hour pack, and then we're putting the BMS on, and we're testing everything before the lid gets sealed on it for all
Mm-hmm.
the error codes and failure modes of a battery to make sure that it's functioning properly. So that's all of those quality steps are steps that we take at Battleborn Batteries in order to ensure one that 10-year warranty that you get when you purchase one of our batteries, but also just the performance and the customer expectation.
Yeah. And I don't know, what folks have seen out there. I know that there's probably not a lot of footage of that stuff, but I think and I don't know whether or not you guys want that to get out there, like your assembly process or whatever, but I think as some of that starts to get out to folks and they see that, then they'll really,
Yeah.
really get it of what's going on. A lot of times, we're visual people. We need to see things actually happening, and then we go, "Oh, okay, this thing is really going together here." So,
There's some of
um,
that floating around out there. If you go to dragonflyenergy.com, you can see some really good footage of our assembly process, and it's awesome. We take we have we had a customer in yesterday, and it's awesome to be able to show it off to customers, because it really is a difference maker between us and a lot of the competition that we encounter.
Yeah. I know I've been there to the factory and done some stuff, but the last time I was there, I didn't get a chance to do it. Next time I go there, I'm gonna work on that for you guys. So van life, let's see, van life with a labradoodle. Van life with a labradoodle says, "What makes Battleborn different than Firefly?"
Well, so, or you mean, does she mean Dragonfly?
I think so. Yeah, so right here she said Firefly, and I make the
Right.
same mistake myself, by the way, because I always
Absolutely.
say
So,
Firefly instead of Dragonfly, but
yeah,
it's Dragonfly. So yeah, let's explain that, and what is the difference between Battleborn and Dragonfly, and
yeah.
what
So
do the different things
Dragonfly
do?
Energy is the name of the company.
Hmm.
We're a publicly traded company, traded on the Nasdaq. We were really proud of that feat. We accomplished that in October
Hmm.
of last year. It
Hmm.
was a monumental moment for the business, and we so originally the go to market strategy
Hmm.
was, hey, we'll handle Battleborn batteries on the consumer side. That'll be our direct to consumer brand. Dragonfly Energy, that'll be our OEM brand, and we'll go ahead and we'll develop different products for both markets, and we'll have two different brands, and we'll go to market that way. We had so much success on the Battleborn batteries side of our business. The consumer demand was so much greater than what we anticipated, and it just took off
Hmm.
with kind of a life of its own, right? That the OEMs eventually, they just said, hey, we don't. It had that curb appeal, right? They didn't want to have to tell the story at the dealer level that Dragonfly and Battleborn are one and
Right.
the same. They
Yeah.
said, hey, we just want to put Battleborn batteries on our rigs and send them to the dealers.
Hmm.
So originally there was um, uh, we had to pivot, right? And so
Hmm.
now most of everything that we have in the marketplace is Battleborn batteries. There
Okay.
are some Dragonfly, Keystone RV, right? We have our exclusive
Hmm.
Dragonfly Energy for towable market is through Keystone, and it's been a great relationship. We've got
Midwest
Tiffin Motor.
Automotive. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, Tiffin Motorhomes has Dragonfly Energy branded batteries in their rigs.
Hmm.
Midwest Automotive has Dragonfly Energy branded batteries. Triple E up in Manitoba, they running Dragonfly Energy
Hmm.
batteries.
Yep.
So
Some.
there are OEMs that are still using Dragonfly Energy batteries. The difference is just simply the colors and the label that's on the box, right? They're coming off
Okay.
the exact same production line. Now, I will say that in the future, when we're building our own cells within the United States, that cell technology, that will be Dragonfly Energy product, and it
Oh,
will
okay.
not. Battleborn batteries will use Dragonfly Energy cells, but it will be a Dragonfly Energy cell and a Battleborn batteries product.
Okay. Cool. Let's get some more.
We'll continue. We'll continue to try to confuse the consumer. Don't
Right,
worry about
exactly. I mess this up all the time. I mess this up all the time. Battleboard is just so
that's
much easier.
Tyler's job, is to sort all that out, right?
Oh, Tyler, man, he's already got a lot of work that he has to
I
do.
know.
I don't know,
I know.
but the thing is, like Battleborn, I think really got that name because very early in this whole van thing of people switching over to lithium, you guys invested a lot of time and resources to actually get out there and show people. You were going to Quartzsite. I
Oh
think
yeah,
you still do, right? You
yeah.
guys are still
We're at
going to
Quartzsite
Quartzsite.
this year. We'll be there again
Hmm.
next year. It's a great show for us. The consumer that attends Quartzsite gets it. They
Hmm.
understand the challenges. Like that consumer is not somebody that's going from campground to campground and constantly plugged into a pole. That
Hmm.
consumer that goes to Quartzsite, they are somebody that is used to boondocking, and
Hmm.
they go to Quartzsite with the intention of buying a new system.
Yep. Yeah, and so I was just talking to someone the other day that was like, yeah, every year that courtside event, people come there to get their systems in, and
Yeah.
you guys have been doing that and really pioneering that, and I think that's where you built up the brand recognition. I hope you guys keep doing it because it's incredibly valuable resource to a lot of people out there. So we've got like, let's see, we got about 10 seconds here. So what I'm going to do is go over into the next section and get some questions. There's questions starting to come in from folks. Remember to smash those thumbs ups, guys. We need and appreciate that. So as you guys might have already heard, Lola and myself are brand ambassadors for Sunshine State RV. And as VanNoisSeurs, I want to take this moment to encourage anyone who is in the market for a Class B van to start their journey with SSRV.
Sunshine State RVs specializes in selling Class B vans and B plus RVs. That is the reason why they are the #1 dealer in all of the state of Florida.
Number 3 in the whole United States.
SSRV will fly you right to their location in Gainesville, Florida. They'll give you a very detailed and thorough walkthrough of your van, and they'll give you a 2-night stay at a local campground so you can get used to your van. If you don't like that, you can actually have hands-free delivery anywhere in the United States of your RV.
We bought our Coachmen Beyond from Sunshine State RV 2 years ago. And over the past 2 years, we've seen how they treat customers when it comes to warranty side. Their service team is great. Whether you bought it from them or not, every person that comes in there gets the same service and care when it comes to warranty repairs. The same service, attention, and care. And their team does a great job getting you back on the road safely.
So if you guys are in the market for a B or B plus van, consider Sunshine State RV. We've got a link in the description that you guys can use to see their current inventory and have someone get in touch with you. All right, now hopefully you guys will forgive me for another plug, but Lola and I, as I said, we do have Battleborn batteries in our van. That's what we're running off right now. I don't have my generator going. I'm running off of the Battleborns. So we actually have a code, and the promo code is STRANGE, and that gets you $50 off per battery that you buy from Battleborn batteries at any time. So just, remember that, use it. I'll talk about it later, but that's just for the folks out there. Now let me get to this way because I think this is relative to what you were saying. I've got some comments here. So let's see. Shakar Muna says that Battleborn website is confusing when it comes to individual components. I don't know if it's due to Victron's offerings or how the solar and lithium packages are set up on the site. Do you ever get like folks getting confused about different components and setups?
Yeah, the best move, if there's ever any questions, is either to call in or send an email. We're really responsive on that side of it, and we tailor the solutions on the DIY side to the consumer and what they're trying to accomplish. So if you're wanting to simply camp for the weekend and not run your air conditioner, that's one solution. If you're wanting to run your AC for a week, that's another solution, right? They all have different power demands, and you make considerations on both sides of that equation, right? What devices you may be wanting to power or can sacrifice, and some people want to go all. So it does get. I can understand that comment. It does sometimes get a little bit confusing, but that's why we're here, right? We're here to simplify it. That's what our team does. I just last night, Wednesday evenings, we have a tech call with our entire team, and we go through some of the tech challenges that our consumers have brought to us, so that we share those with the team, so that way everybody can learn from every installation. So it really is. I can't emphasize it enough. It really is best in class service when it comes to dealing with our folks on the inside.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I know it's tough, right? In this day and age, it's tough for people to actually pick up a phone, dial it, and then talk to another human being. It sounds like I'm trying to make fun, but I'm not, because I think there's a lot of people that don't really want to do that. But I promise you, the guys at Battleborn, this is their thing. This is what they do, and they'll walk you through. I don't know anything about this, and those guys have spent a bunch of time sending me, graphs and charts and walking me through stuff and explaining it to me like a baby. until I get it. So, and it helps.
It's important if you're out there and you're boondocking.
Right.
We feel like we have a commitment to the customer to help them understand their energy consumption and how they're using power, so that way they're not left high and dry, right? We want you to, one of our taglines, right? Be out there, stay out there. We want you to be able to do that. And I always say, Hank, it's a delightful experience to call into our office. We really don't get consumers that go away. They may go away with different expectations than what they came into the call with, but they really do get the information in the end of what their system can do and what they need to do to match their use case.
Yeah. What's the big misconceptions you get? Like, so I'll start with one. And you can tell me if this is the biggest one or not. But I've stood in your booth at a lot of different places, and people walk up and they go, okay, I've got one AGM battery, or like the battery that came with whatever, my trailer that's in there, and I should just be able to buy this battery from you and just take that one and put this one in there. Everything's awesome. Is that how it goes?
It can, depending on when the rig was built and what the charge components are inside of it. So, and those are some of the questions we go through. Honestly, the manufacturers have been doing a really good job of making their coaches kind of lithium ready, right? The charge components now have lithium charge profiles in them. So anything built really, 2020, 2021 and beyond. So a lot of the newer stuff is really lithium ready. You can really drop it in and change a few settings on your existing equipment and then go, but you need to know how to change those settings. I would say that the biggest misconception is, hey, I swapped out my AGMs for lithium batteries and I put a 200-watt solar panel on the roof. I should be like, why can't I run my air conditioner for 3 days? And you're like, well, you have 200 amp hours, and your air conditioner is going to run for probably 2.5 hours on 200 amp hours, right? At full tilt. So it's painting that proper expectation in the consumer's brain. I mean, the first question I always ask is, when somebody says, hey, I want to transition to lithium, what do I need? I'm like, okay, well, we need to understand how much power you're going to use. So are you going to run your air conditioner or are you not? If you're going to run your AC off of batteries, it takes you down one track. If you're not going to run your air conditioner, it takes you down a different track. And, so understanding that and understanding, like I said, the use case and how the consumer wants to deploy their power is the biggest question that we need to answer when building out a system for somebody.
Yeah, and I think like I get this question or a similar question very often. So, and a lot of guys are going up. I think in the beginning, the bills that were out there, you were getting maybe like 300 amp hours, let's say, right? And then it went up to about 6, and now American Coach, for example, Midwest Automotive, they're doing 1080. And then people say to me, okay, so how much longer now is it going to take that probably 200-watt solar panels that they have to charge that up? And I don't know if, first of all, there's not enough real estate on the roof of a van to put enough solar panels there to really do the job. I think, what's an average AC now is using, about 100 watts an hour? Or no, probably more than that, right?
No, more, closer to 1,000.
1,000, okay, 1,000 watts.
1,000 watts an hour, yeah.
Right, okay, so 1,000 watts, how do you replace that? Can you actually put 1,000 watts up on your roof?
For sure. So a van doesn't have the real estate, right? Because you got an air conditioner up there, you've got a vent, you've got maybe a luggage rack that you want to use, you've got some other things up there. It really doesn't have enough space for solar. Now, if you have a big fifth wheel and you've got plenty of real estate to put over 1,000 watts of solar up there, then that's a different story. How people recharge their batteries, one way in a van that is gaining in popularity and the OEMs are starting to deploy is that second alternator, right? So they put a second alternator on, and we actually manufacture a product called Wake Speed. So the Wake Speed product is a alternator regulator. So it regulates that alternator so that it manages the relationship between the battery and the alternator so that we're not overtaxing either side of the equation. And we're putting maximum power into the battery while understanding how the alternator works and not overburdening the alternator, because lithium's great, right? The best thing about lithium that I think on the charging side is it's incredibly efficient. For solar, it pairs so well because pretty much everything that you're able to harvest off of your solar panels is going into the battery.
Mm-hmm.
And the same is true on the alternator. Pretty much everything that you're able to generate on that second alternator, 95+% of it is entering the battery in storage.
Yeah.
Well, the flip side of that is that we'll take all the power you're able to generate, whether it's off the roof on solar panels or if it's off the alternator. We got to be cognizant that we don't overtax that alternator and burn it out.
Yeah.
You want to make sure that you don't shorten the lifespan of that alternator. So that's what the WakeSpeed product does. And it's been we acquired that company a couple of years ago, and it's been a great acquisition for us. It's really helped us in a lot of new markets, the marine market in particular. The technology that exists there is very unique, and it's actually deployed by many other battery companies as well.
Okay. Few things here. One, see, this is where I get confused, where I just did all the time, right? Because you got to think about amp hours, watts,
Right.
all that kind of stuff. I think 100 amp hours is probably what, like, I've looked at my AC, it's using 100 amp hours or something like that, or a little bit more than that, right? To run that AC every hour. So there's all these different things. It does get confusing because you're trying to balance all of that in your head. You guys do this all the time. Most people, are not doing it all the time. So trying to figure it out gets crazy. And then the other thing with the second alternator, when I first, so our van came with AGMs and a generator, and then we took out those AGMs, put in Battleborn. We have the generator, and I thought, wow, this is going to be awesome. Now I'm ready for the apocalypse. I've got a generator. We do have this set up that it charges when I'm driving off of the original alternator. Like you said, though, you don't want to burn that out, so you're not getting a big charge out of that alternator when it's driving. It's really slow. I think I would have to drive for somewhere over 10 hours, maybe 12 hours straight to get my batteries fully charged. It's
Probably.
a long time. It's a long time, and
You're
it's
probably only
switching out.
getting, you're so from an OEM, they're going to govern that alternator down that's charging the house bank. So they're going to put a device in place that's a battery isolator, or maybe it's a DC to DC converter, or some other, what we would generalize as an alternator protection device, right? They're going to put something in place that's going to throttle that alternator down so that you don't burn up. You're probably getting maybe 50 amps going back to your battery bank, and you've got 540 amp hours in your rig. So if you're getting all 50 amps, it's going to take you a 10-hour drive to recharge.
But you're not getting that all the time. A lot of times you're driving it, and I look at it, I can monitor it, and I'm looking at it, and it's like, oh, well, you're on a negative right now. If I wanted to, I could show you guys right now, because there is pretty good software and all that kind of stuff. Right now I'm on a negative. I don't know, you guys can't see this necessarily, but I'm on a negative of 5 amps right now. Okay. So here's the thing. So I thought, hey, generator, that's awesome. I can use that generator, charge the battery back up, but also just run things off of it. Now, so a lot of times I found myself running that generator while I'm driving to get the batteries charged up when I get somewhere, because even a lot of campgrounds don't want you running a generator after a certain time of night.
Right.
But even if you're boondocking and you're stopping somewhere that doesn't have those restrictions, you don't want to call too much attention to yourself by running the generator. So I'm running that generator in order to do it. But I just found that the generator is prone to issues, problems. You've got to maintain that thing. Check it up. It shuts itself off. It does all kinds of crazy things. I'm actually now over generators. I would think I would rather just get a second alternator, and I'm assuming WakeSpeed somehow helps those two alternators to work together and then bring up how much it's going to charge, right?
Yeah, so it does. So we have there's a couple different, just like the battery system, there's a couple different ways to deploy it. If you're putting a second alternator in, you're usually able to capture 150 to 200 amps of power right? And then if you have that second alternator, you're able to isolate the two systems. So you have your house system, and then you have your chassis system, and really you're able to push a ton of power back to that battery bank. And even at a you size the pulley ratio and some other factors to make sure that you're at an idle speed, right? When you're like you are right now, you're just sitting and idling.
Yeah.
Your chassis alternator is not going to generate that much electricity when you're just sitting
here.
idle.
Yeah.
But when you push that throttle down, when you push that accelerator down, you're going to generate a little bit more power, right? And that's when you're going to push more back. Well, when you put a second alternator in, you size it so that you're able to push power while you're idling as well. So it really is a nice solution that the OEMs are starting to deploy. And you have a lot of our upfitters and our, we just launched a certified dealer or a certified installer and dealer program. So if you go to the battlebornbatteries.com, you can see a map of where those installers are, and they'll really help you through that installation process and help hit you with the same level of service that you would get if you were to call in. So I'd recommend, if anybody has any questions that they want to talk to somebody, physically in person, have them do the install. If it's a little bit too much, go to one of those certified dealers or installers, and they'll really help you through the process.
Yeah, absolutely. That's my plan. I think I can save some weight and space, get rid of my generator, put in a second alternator. It's lighter. I know people think, well, then I have to turn my engine on. Well, you got to run the generator anyway, so
right.
And it's not going to use as much fuel if you're just sitting there and you turn it on. It's going to charge it back up faster, though. From what I've seen with things that have it in there. Let me get to some more comments or questions. Louise Hitchcock says, "Hi people, I live in Michigan. How does the cold winter weather affect the batteries?" Good question.
Awesome question.
Yeah.
Awesome question. So, lithium batteries are just like, as far as how the conditions. Let me restart this answer. Sorry, Hank.
Mm-hmm. No worries.
Our batteries perform on the discharge side incredibly better than lead acid batteries in cold temps. We will always discharge in cold climates. It does not hurt the battery to discharge in freezing climates. We go a step further with our batteries, and we protect consumers from charging their batteries in freezing climates, because that will shorten the lifespan. So a lead acid battery, a traditional AGM or flooded battery, it'll let you recharge in whatever condition because it doesn't have any intelligence inside of it, right? So it's going to let you go ahead and hurt and deteriorate faster.
Okay.
Whereas we're going to stop charging at 25 degrees inside of the battery. Well, we found that we have a lot of consumers in Michigan. We have a lot of consumers in Montana. We have a lot of folks that like to go skiing and want to take their van on the side of the mountain and jump out and go, right? So what we decided to deploy was an internal heater, and that was through a couple of different steps of external heaters where we, it was okay, but it was kind of a Band-Aid to the problem. And so now we actually put heat inside of our batteries. So every single one of our batteries can be ordered with heat inside of it. And what that means is that it'll keep it at that safe charging temperature above freezing for those folks that want to camp in the extreme elements, or if you've got an off-grid cabin and you want to be able to charge your batteries in freezing climates. Obviously the more insulation you can put in the compartment where the batteries are going, the better, because it's less that heater has to work, because the heater is going to use the power that's inside of the battery in order to keep it above freezing inside there. So the more insulation you can put in the area, the better. But as far as how lithium batteries perform in freezing climates as opposed to lead acid batteries, there's a really nice study that we did, and it's on our website around that cold temperature charging, and they outperform at every measure from a lead acid battery.
Yeah, I think one of the benefits is the AGMs or lead acid. You cannot have that inside of the cabin, right? Because of
100%, yeah.
fumes,
They off gas, whether it's AGM sealed batteries or flooded lead acid batteries. They off gas and toxic gases, and you do not want to have those inside of a closed compartment. You have to have those mounted outside in a ventilated compartment. So if you're worried, if you're mobile, like your install there underneath the bench is a perfect install.
Yep.
However, we have consumers and OEMs that mount them outside of the vehicle, and they don't have any problems because they simply put the heat on. And most folks are they're chasing the sun, and they're wanting to camp when it's above freezing temperatures. And if it falls, you know what I mean? And if overnight it falls below freezing, the batteries are still going to work. They're still going to discharge just fine. They just internally to the battery, it has to be above 25 degrees. So you got some room there to play with. So.
Yeah. So now we might have to take this over into the next section, but Lola and some other folks are asking about UL listing. Lola says, please explain UL listing. Lots of confusion about this designation. So let's start it here. We've got about a minute, so it's going to take a break. So start off here, and then we'll carry it over.
Sure. Our packs are all UL listed, right? There's different listings out there. Everybody's pack, for the most part, most of the cells that you buy from China are listed at the cell level, but that's it. We make sure that after we assemble the pack, we then send it off to a nationally recognized lab, and they go the step further to list the pack. And after the break, we can kind of go through what those listings are, what some of the tests maybe are in those that listing process, that the abuse that our batteries go through, right?
Yeah. I think this is a big question, and I've heard a lot of chatter, at least even behind the scenes, just about UL listing. There's a whole different bunch of kinds of UL listing and all that. So yes, we're going to get into that right after this. Hit the thumbs ups. Lola and I are now official brand ambassadors for Coachmen Class B. So I wanted to take a moment to tell you guys why we, as VanNoisSeurs, like it says on our t-shirt, are very excited about our partnership with Coachmen Class B.
First off, Coachmen RVs has been a leader to the great outdoors since 1964.
So next is the fact that Coachmen really cares about you as an owner, whether you bought new or used. After you buy your van, they really take care of you.
With Coachmen Class B, you have all the options. Coachmen builds on all 3 van platforms. On the Mercedes Sprinter, it's the Coachmen Galleria. The Ford Transit is the Coachmen Beyond. And Ram ProMaster is the Coachmen Nova.
Lastly, best value for money. We've had our van for 2 years, and Coachmen builds to the highest standards of quality and craftsmanship. You can't go wrong with a Coachmen Class B. So if you're interested, check out the link in our description and find the Coachmen van that's best for you. Yeah, now I know why they made you the CRO. The chief revenue officer. That's the guy with the money. You are efficient. I was like, there's no way he's gonna get this answer in before we take a break. You did though. I was amazed by that.
I tried.
Yeah, you did a good job.
You could go down with the listing question. I mean, I've sat on standards committees in all of the industries that we serve, and there are engineers that will go on for hours and hours and hours about the listing topic. So we can go down this rabbit hole as far as you want to go, Hank. I'm ready.
Yeah. I don't know how much the folks out there really understand about what's going on with UL listing. Now, obviously, I think people realize, like, hey, this has to do with safety, and that's why this is here. I think also Rivia, am I saying that right? The RVIA,
Yep,
so that's
RVIA.
Now that's a board that's setting standards for the RV industry and what kind of batteries in specific. They do everything that goes into an RV, I think, but batteries in specific. What kind of batteries are in there? What's their UL listing, etc. Right? Am I right or wrong on that one?
Yeah, you're 100% right. So in the aftermarket, consumers can pretty much put in whatever they can get their hands on, right? We can't really control what a consumer is going to put into their rig. Within the RV industry, we're a self-governing industry, right? The RVIA is sanctioned by the federal government to administer and govern ourselves, and we take that very serious as an industry. And so with lithium batteries being such an emerging technology 4 or 5 6 years ago, we took a step to really educate everybody. And the listings were not, they're constantly evolving because we're constantly discovering new technologies and new applications. It was really important to us as a manufacturer to make sure that all the other battery manufacturers were operating at the same safety level, right? We didn't want to be undercut by somebody that was coming in with an unsafe battery, because anybody that has an issue with lithium is going to set everybody else back. So whether it's our battery or another battery, we just wanted to make sure that the consumers were deploying them safely. So the best way to do that was to say, hey, if you're an OEM and you're going to put lithium batteries in your rig before it hits the dealer lot, the battery pack or the battery system has to be listed. It's not enough just to have the cell listed. You actually have to take your finished battery or your finished system, send that off to a UL recognized national laboratory, right? And there's I think 7 or 8 of them that RVIA recognizes. We use Intertech, which is up in Michigan. That's if you see anything that has that ETL mark on it, that's Intertech. That's one of the labs that RVIA recognizes. Because if you only used UL writes the standards, right? Underwriters Laboratory, they write the standard, and they also do testing. But if you only use one lab, but if you only used one lab to do the testing, the queue to get into that lab would be years long, and you'd never get products to market. So the other laboratories, they test to the UL standard, and then they list your product, and RVIA decides which laboratories are kind of endorsed or able to be adhered to, right? So we use ETL. We list our batteries to UL 2054 as well as IEC 62133. So those are the 2 major listings that we use. There's some other listings out there that other battery manufacturers use that are more suitable for their system and their chemistry that they're deploying, right? So we're a lithium iron phosphate manufacturer. That's the chemistry that we utilize. Other folks use NMC. And with an NMC battery, maybe a different listing is more appropriate. The important thing to us as a manufacturer is that other battery guys are all adhering to the same safety standards. And those listings really do ensure that people are deploying lithium responsibly. It's not, again, the biggest thing is that it's not enough just to have that cell be a listed cell. That's a prerequisite for every listing. It's critical that the pack, after it's assembled, is then listed.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Okay, I think I understand that a little bit better. And I think on the consumer side, you might be wondering, well, okay, who cares? Well, so if you're going to get a loan on an RV, to buy an RV, right? I think someone has a comment about how expensive they are. If you're going to get that loan, those places writing those loans want the RVIA to have certified this thing, right, as an RV, so that they can write a loan on it. And so that's really important if you're going to do that. Now, let's say you don't care, you're buying it cash or whatever. Okay, when you can have issues with whatever it is, right? Whatever it is that's under that, and you might not actually get service on some things if you're not properly listed. Am I right or wrong on that?
Yeah, correct. So from an insurance standpoint, we face it in the marine world a lot, right? There are boat owners who have a hard time getting insurance on their vessel once they put lithium on it. That's why we get involved with ABYC in that market segment. It's more safety oriented and a peace of mind that the product that you're putting onto your rig, or that your manufacturer has decided to put onto their rig, is going to meet the safety threshold that everybody expects, right? They expect that the batteries are going to be safe to be able to deploy. The same reason that there's a standard written in that if you put lead acid batteries in, that they have to go in a vented compartment. It's the same set of reasons that we're trying to instill as safety. And there are folks that cut corners and do things in business all the time, and I can't stop them. But what we can do as a manufacturer is we can build the safest product possible, and that's what we do. I always say, Hank, I don't want to lose sleep over safety. I want to lose sleep over the deal, right? As somebody that's out there trying to sell batteries, trying to convince people to use our products, I want to make sure that safety concern. If I'm trying to sell a product and there's safety concerns over it, I got a really big hurdle.
Yeah.
But if I'm trying to sell a product and maybe it's more expensive, I can justify that because I'm building the safest product on the market.
Yeah.
So that's
Makes sense.
I think you said you had a question about safety or about the price.
Yeah, actually that's coming up. Okay, I'll get into that right now. Peter Grimshaw says, I'm glad I bought a house instead of an RV. Did all my traveling in the 70s until 2003 during better times. Dude, it's always getting worse as we go forward in the future in terms of inflation and all of that. So yes, the past was always bad. I grew up in the 80s, and I sit here when I grew up in the 80s as a kid, like going to high school and everything in the 80s, I thought, how terrible is this? But now, as like a 50-year-old, I'm 51, I look back and go, oh man, those 80s, those are awesome times.
They were great. They were great times. And I would say, we're everybody, history's relative to how old you are, right? I mean, everybody thinks that their past was the best time to be living. I'm sure my children can't imagine growing up without a cell phone, right? I mean, but I'm like, it was pretty awesome, right? It was okay.
No cell phones, no Uber, no Uber Eats.
But prices go up. That's what they do. But the great thing about our products is that when you evaluate it over the cost of ownership, it really is the least expensive way to run your rig. And that's how you have to evaluate it. So whenever people come up and they're like, well, hey, how much is a GC3, right? One of the batteries that you have, $2,500. Like, wow, that's really expensive. I'm like, yeah, it comes with a 10-year warranty. You're not going to replace that battery for more than 10 years. And when they are able to then simply do the math and say, okay, well, that's really affordable, right? That's the cheapest. I'm going to replace I'm going to go through 3 sets of AGM batteries in that 10 years. Okay, this makes a lot of sense. Like, why don't I see what I can do with lithium? So it really, when you break it down that way and you break it down over cost of ownership, over the inconvenience of being out there and not being able to start a pot of coffee or run your hair dryer or simply turn on a fan or something else, I mean, you're going to be kicking yourself that you didn't put lithium into your coach.
Absolutely, I agree with that. And just to put something on that point here, I'm going to show you guys. So Lola and I, we're in Jacksonville right now, by the way. We're sitting in like a Target parking lot in Jacksonville because we just went to Freedom Van Gogh. And we had this Raptor grill put in here.
That's awesome.
In the van. Yeah, it makes it look real tough,
Real mean.
Real mean. Yeah, we had the whole van wrapped, as you guys can see here. We got this. I'm showing this off. Okay, the reason why I'm showing that off to folks out there is I just want you to know that, that's all cool stuff that's mostly cosmetic, right? Or just based on looks. And it makes me feel better that it looks better. It looks different from other people's things. That's awesome. But I agree with you. The best value thing that we did in this van was to upgrade to lithium batteries. Right? And,
I had a... Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, just for what you're saying, like, I can literally pull into places in the middle of the night and shut everything off in here and go sleep in my van and run the AC if it's hot and all that. I have a sleep machine, all that kind of stuff. I don't have to run the engine or do anything like that. I could be very comfortable inside this van because of those batteries, and it's a big deal. Don't have to run the generator, engine, or anything. It's an investment for sure, and it costs money, but very much worth it in my opinion.
Hank, you probably used to have what we like to term battery anxiety, right? Before you had lithium. and you'd have that anxiety of, am I going to last long enough? Is this battery going to perform? And we kind of take care of that.
Yeah,
like, when
I
you
was
put
worried about how
batteries.
many times I could run it down to zero, and even without the lithium batteries, there's things in these vans that run all the time, and
Yep.
you have so many times that you run those batteries down to zero, you're replacing all of those batteries, but to use my microwave, I had to run the generator and do stuff, right? To do this thing, all your 12-volt stuff will run off of that. But there's other things that in order to do it, you had to run the generator. Right now, I'm sitting here in the van. I do have the engine running so that we can have AC coming in here, because the regular AC here would just make a lot of noise. Everything else is running, and I've got a ton of stuff. If I showed people I've got lights here and computers and all kinds of stuff set up right now, and that's running off the batteries.
Yeah, no, it does. It makes life easier for the RVer, for the boater, for one of the other industries that we are gaining in popularity and use cases is over the road truck drivers, right? Heavy duty truck applications have sleeper cabs. That sleeper cab, most of the time, if you're at a rest area, you hear all those trucks idling, right? Yeah, they don't have to do that anymore. Right, you put lithium in those rigs, and you run an electric air conditioner up on that rooftop or in the side of the sleeper cab, and it'll run for 10, 15 hours. I mean, they are really efficient. The ACs are becoming more efficient. The batteries are becoming more efficient. The whole system is. So.
Absolutely. So I think this might be in that vein. This question from NW Indiana Elevators says, "Hello everyone. Will lithium batteries be in accessible cars?" So I'm not sure, or I don't know if that's be accessible in cars.
Maybe handicap accessible cars.
Yeah, it could be that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think so. I think that you'll find, the folks like. I think the big one is Braun Ability. Braun is like one of the largest manufacturers of or upfitters of accessible vehicles, and so they're taking Dodge minivans and putting the wheelchair lifts in those and everything else. They're going to be forced to adapt to lithium. Any use case where the battery is being used for storage is a great use case for lithium batteries. So yeah, I don't see why it wouldn't.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Kevin Looney says we answered this question, but let's hit it again just to make sure. How many lithium Battleborn batteries to run a 12-volt AC for 8 hours? And I think we kind of covered it, but for 8 hours specifically?
Well, if it's 12-volt air conditioner, it's probably going to run for a little bit less wattage than a 110-volt AC, right? Because it doesn't have to go through the inverter. So you're probably 600 to 700 amp hours of battery power is what you need to run that. And that's now the other thing you have to consider here is that you like at your home, you hear your air conditioner come on outside. You hear that compressor turn on. That what we're talking about is compressor runtime. So when the compressor is on and we're pushing out cold air, that's when it's drawing the most power, and that's the hour rating that we're giving you. So if the compressor's coming on and then turning off and the fan's just running, and then the compressor comes back on, it's going to run for longer time.
Absolutely, yeah. Depending on the temperature, ambient temperature.
Compressor runtime, Hank, we're going to get 6 to 7 hours.
Okay, cool. Let's get this in from Sunshine State RVs. They say the apocalypse is coming. Get Battleborn batteries. Be ready from Sunshine State RVs. You could definitely get Battleborn batteries installed by Sunshine State RVs. That's who did my installation, coordinating with you guys and myself. So and they've done Battleborn.
No, they're a great dealer.
Yeah. Let's see. Shakar Muna says some RVs are going to be getting air to water generators. How will Battleborn accommodate this in the future? Air to water generators. Oh, interesting. So like creating water out of the air. I'm not sure how much power that needs to run. It's probably as much as an AC, I would assume, right?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with the use case, but
Mm-hmm.
honestly, if there's a generation source, if there's a power generation source, whether that's
Mm-hmm.
whatever type of generator it is, or if
Mm-hmm.
it's solar on the roof, or if it's the alternator on the engine,
Mm-hmm.
we're really just looking to make sure that it's the proper voltage coming in. So we'll
Mm-hmm.
work with, we were the driving force, honestly, behind, Progressive Dynamics and WIFCO and all the other popular brands in the RV market, right? The Magnums, the Xantraxes, all these guys. We worked with them to get them to tailor their charge algorithm so that it was
Mm-hmm.
suitable for lithium. So no matter the generation source, we'll work with that company
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that their output is appropriate for lithium batteries.
Yeah, I think this, if you're thinking about the future, which I do want to talk to you about in the next few minutes that we have left, thinking about the future, I could see as more people spend more time out in RVs, maybe bigger than vans. Some folks are living full time in vans, but maybe bigger RVs than vans, and they're living out there full time. They do need to create water, right? And I probably, just my assumption, and I don't know anything, I'm a complete dingbat. I'm going to assume it's going to be at least as much power as an AC to do that. So, and John Parsons says, "What about high temperature environments?" And that's all of that's demanding. So, let's do this before we get out of here, right? Future. We've got like 2 minutes. What's the future
Absolutely.
for Battleborn and lithium batteries, do you think?
So the future for Dragonfly Energy and Battleborn is to build our own cells with lithium that's mined in the state of Nevada and processed in the state of Nevada, and then put into cells and be a completely 100% US made battery. That's the future for us, and that's what we're driving towards. And having we want to bring renewable sources of power. We want to bring the cost down. And the only way that we're going to do that is if we're vertically integrated and we're manufacturing here in the United States. So that's the future for us. That's what we're driving towards. And all of these early adopters and early adopting industries like RVs, like marine, like over-the-road trucking, like traditional off-grid cabins, those are all early proving grounds for the technology that we're deploying. It's only going to get better.
Yeah, even military. I saw some people talking about military stuff here also in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Once we advance into the solid state side of things and we have 100% non-flammable battery, you're going to see a lot more, I think, DoD deployment.
Yeah. All right, very cool. And then Lola wants to know about Battleborn batteries with Dragonfly intelligence. What does that mean? And can you explain it in 20 seconds? No, you've got a little bit. You got more time. Yeah, okay.
It means that all of the communication and all of the data that you're looking for out of your energy source is going to be accessible to you, and it's just going to work seamlessly with all of the other components.
Yeah. So basically, if you have issues communicating with the batteries to see what's going on, or them telling you what's up, or even telling the service folks, for example, right, what's going on with the battery, it's going to be easier to do.
It's going to be easier to diagnose if there's any issues. You're going to get notified sooner of needing a recharge. You're going to be able to have all of that intelligence that you want in your energy system to understand your consumption at your fingertips. And it's going to be it's great advancement for our product, and it's necessary as everything. The expectation for everybody's products is that they're smarter and they're more intelligent, and that they can kind of fix themselves, and that's what we'll be able to do.
Yeah, and Shakar Muna says Electra Battery has cobalt and nickel mines in Canada and the U.S., specifically Nevada. Sounds like a corporate partnership. I don't know if you're familiar with Electra Battery.
We'll take a look.
Yeah, and now I know that there's we didn't cover this here, and I don't know if we have time for it, but you guys kind of, what's the situation with you guys on the stock market or not on the stock market now?
We're publicly traded. We're on the NASDAQ, ticker DFLI.
Okay.
It was we went public in October, and it was a great experience, right? We went out to New York and did the whole opening bell, and it's been a great source of capital for our company so that we can grow to that next stage.
Okay, so and we should see some really cool things coming out of that, right?
Absolutely. But the first of it is the Dragonfly intelligence batteries. Next up, we've got cell manufacturing happening and a lot of other future innovations.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, we I'm surprised how fast time went, actually. And I know we probably didn't cover everything for everyone out there, but as Wade said, if you guys have more questions about Battleborn or lithium batteries in general, I could suggest a couple of things. As we said, call them up, go to the website, or they're going to be at shows, right? I know you guys are at the Overland shows, so probably Overland East. There's another Overland coming up before East.
Yeah, there's Overland West in Colorado coming up next month. We'll be there. We're at ICAST right now, which is going on down in Florida. Your neck of the woods. We're at shows all over the country. So I think we have an events page on our website. So if you want to see where we're at, go to our website, battlebornbatteries.com. You can see what shows we'll be attending.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really the best way if you could do it. And I know not everyone could do that, but you go to these shows, you're going to see these guys. They'll be more than happy to show you stuff, talk to you about things, and even if they have to follow up, get you info. I see them doing it all the time. Wade, I really appreciate this. I appreciate you taking the time to come in here, answer some questions for folks. Hopefully we'll get you to come back and do more of that in the future.
No, thank you, Hank, and thanks to your audience. You've been very supportive of Battleborn batteries. We're happy you have a great experience with your products, or the products you have on your rig. And yeah, I would just second what you said. If anybody has any other questions that are specific to their use case, just call in. It's a delightful experience, and we're happy to serve you.
Yeah, absolutely. It really is. It really is. Obviously I'm biased on this, but I've looked at these guys for a while now, and they're really easy to approach and ask questions. So I really do encourage everyone for that. Big thanks to you, Wade, and everyone else over there at Battleborn. I look forward to the next time I'm coming through Nevada, and I could stop in and hang out with you guys and do some more content to bring that to the folks out there. But thanks so much for all that you've done for myself and Lola so far. We really do appreciate it.
You bet.
Thanks a lot.
Talk to you next time.
Absolutely. Okay, you stay right there, guys. We'll see you. Don't forget to hit those thumbs up, share this. We will be back next week, Thursday, at the same time. We're out of here. We'll see you. Peace.
Awesome.